Erev Tov, Masechet Ketubot Daf Amud Aleph, 103a1. So it says the Gemara, Lo Yomru Shnehem. That means you remember that there were two husbands. Each husband accepted upon himself to support the wife's daughter for 5 years. So each one of them cannot come and say, right, you know what, we're only going to support them together, right, the daughter. But rather, one of them has to give them the food, and one of them is going to give like the money. There was a story of a person that he rented out a mill to his friend in order that he should come and he should do, mezonot beto. So lesof at the end, he became rich. So he went and he purchased the rechaim and a chamor to do this. Right? That means basically he didn't need any more than the socher. So Elmaleh, he comes and he says, Ad ha'idna hava tachina gabach. Until now, right, you were coming and you were. That's until now. So basically, what happened was that one Kuf Gimel Amud Aleph. Yeah. So basically, he says that the guy, he wasn't paying a wage; he was just working for him. So, for example, I've got a mill. Yeah, Baba Haki is going to use my mill. Instead of him coming and paying me rent, what he does is that he's doing all my mill. Meaning, he's coming and he's doing all that which I need to be done. So he's coming and he's doing all the products for me. So he's not paying me rent. His rent is his work for me. So he's working for me, and that's the rent. What happened was at the end, right, the one that's renting out the property became rich. So what did he do? He went and he bought the rechaim and a chamor to do it for himself, and therefore he didn't need any more the socher. He didn't need the rental. Yeah. He comes and he says, he says, one second. Until now, right, I was doing everything for you, instead of the rent. Hashta, but now that I don't need it anymore, havli egra, come and give me the schirut, meaning come and give me rent. Elmaleh, he tells him, mitchan tachina lach. No, I'm going to continue doing your mill. I'm going to continue grinding for you and doing all these things, but I'm not going to give you rent. So Savar Ravina Lemima, Ravina taught to say, that's our Mishnah. Lo yomru shnehem, they both cannot come and say, Hareanu zaninu ta ke'echad, we're both going to give her the parnasah together in one. Ela echad zana, one of them is going to give her the money, right, or the parnasah, and one of them is going to give her the mezonot. So it comes out that even though at the beginning, each one was not giving her the money, they both obligated themselves to give her mezonot, which is food. Nevertheless, if there's already mezonot, the other one has to give it money. So too, the same halakha in this case. Even though the beginning, right, when the renter was coming to rent, he didn't obligate himself to give him money. He only obligated to come to do the grinding and everything. Nevertheless, the service, once the guy became rich and he doesn't need it anymore, he has to give the money. Right? So the guy can't come and say, listen, until now, I wasn't paying you rent. I don't want to pay you rent. I'll continue grinding your things. The guy said, I don't need you to grind for me. I have everything. I don't need you to grind for me. He said, no, that's halakha from our Mishnah. So Amalei Ravira comes and he says, Midami, can you compare both cases? Hatam over there in the case of the Mishnah, says, 1 second, the woman, this girl, she only has one stomach. She doesn't have two stomachs. So if you have two men that are obligated to give her mizonot, what do you want? There's only one stomach. So therefore, one stomach is going to eat, and the other money, instead of going to her stomach, she can't eat double, right? So what's going to happen? She'll get money. But over here, he could come and he could tell him, he could come and tell him, you know what? What I'll do is I'll grind for you, and you sell it to other people. And the other mill that you already have, grind and have it for your own parnasah. He could tell him, listen, no problem. I'm going to continue grinding for you because that's what I was obligated to give you, the grinding, my service, not the actual rent. And then you go sell it. And that you use as your rent. But I'm not going to give you rent, right? So below Amran, but when we say this, only when, right, you cannot find all the time somebody in order to rent it out. And therefore you can come and you can say, Mila, I'm batel, so I'm going to do it. I'm not going to give you money. But right now, if he's not losing anything, he go on zoo, for example, this case, they're going to force him on Midot Sedom, that he's going to say that he's obligated to come and to give him the money. Okay, because he could say, listen, at the end of the day, there's no said, there's nothing of loss. So as long as there's not loss, he could actually come and force him. Because if there's not going to lose out, so you could actually force a person, right, to do such a thing. Okay, so that's until the Mishnah. Now we're on the Mishnah of Gimel Amud Aleph. Okay. Almanah she'amra, and Almanah comes and she says, to the Yorshim of the husband, to the inheritance of her husband. I don't want to leave my husband's house. Yeah, so they cannot come and tell her, go to your father's house and we're going to pay you. Right? We're going to give you food. But rather they give her the mizonot. They have to give her a place to sleep according to her kavod. Meaning they can't just come and put her in some closet. You understand? She has, according to her kavod, they have to come and they have to put her in a room. Okay? Amra, if she said, I don't want to leave my father's house, right? Which means that she wants to live in her father's house and that she wants that they should give her the food there. No, that Yoshim could tell her. If you guys are bias, you have mizonot. If you're not bias, then you don't have mizonot. Right? We're going to see the Gemara why. Like, what's the difference? Why all of a sudden now here no? What happens if she's saying that the reason why she wants to go to her father's house is because she's young and they are young boys? Meaning, remember, the father comes and the father got married to a much younger woman than what he was. He passes away. Now, this girl, she's saying that she's a girl, but technically speaking, she's almost their age, and therefore she's saying, listen, I don't want to be here with the Yoshim, with my husband's children, because they're girls, yeah, well, of course, with a stepson, there's a problem.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, with stepchildren, there's problems, right? Of yichud. That's why you have to. There's problems and everything. 100%. We do give her the parnasa, and she goes to her father's house. Why? But she has a good ta'ana. She has a very good claim. Okay, now we're going to be at the Gemara. We're starting the so she has to live in the house just like she was living during the lifetime of her husband. She uses the cleaning ladies and the like the servants and the maid servants and everything, just like during the lifetime of her husband. Karimu ksatot and the pillows and blankets, just like she was during in the life of the husband. Also the silverware and the goldware, all these things. Because that's what he wrote in the Ketubah. That you're going to be sitting in my house. You're going to have parnasa from my properties. All the days that you are an almana in my house, which means that she gets all the same rights as long as she's in the husband's house. Meaning, as long as she has the same rights. So Tani Rav Yosef comes and she says, "Beveti velo bevikti." What does it mean? In my house, davka, but not in my bika. My bikti is like a tzrif. It's like a shed, a hut, a shed, like like a small, like a small little tiny house. Which means, right, that they cannot come and start, getting her out of there. You understand? Okay. So he says like this. So Amar Rav Nachman comes and he says, "Yetomim shemachru madura almana lo asu v'lo klum." If they even sold the property, they didn't do anything. Because as long as she's an almana, she has the rights to that property. So they cannot come and say, listen, we already sold it, and that's it. No, they didn't do anything. So ask the Gemara, what's the difference between Rav Asi and Yochanan? Rav Asi and Yochanan says, if the Yitomim came and they sold in properties, which are very, very small amount of properties, whatever they sold, and therefore the girls, because remember, when there's nechasim muatim, the girls have the rights before the boys. Boys get inheritance, but girls get food. If there's not a lot of properties, so then the girls get the food because they have to use that for the foods. So they're going to get it first. So answers the Gemara, he says over there, when it's to do with nechasim mishubadim, there was a mishubad during the lifetime. So therefore the Yitomim could come and sell it, and there was no lien on anything towards them. However, though here, for the almanah, everything's already subjugated to her, because the second that she got married, automatically the house was subjugated to her, that they cannot sell the house because she's living in that house. So Abaye says, Nikitina, we have a masoret. Remember, Nikitina is a masoret. It's like we have a Kabbalah. Okay, masoret tibiyadenu. Okay, so he says, that's what Rashi says in Eruvin. So he says, Nikitina midor almana shenafal ena yushicha evitol. But what happens if it falls down? She has the house, and the house caves in. They're not obligated to build it again. Yeah, they're not obligated to. Why? Because it's still his house. His house fell. That's not their problem now. That house was subjugated to her. It falls. It's not their problem. We also learned in right. They're not obligated to build it. Not only that, even if she's going to say, I'm going to build it for my own money. And Shominla, we don't listen to her. So Abaye comes and he asks, what happens if she comes, right, and she fixed it? Meaning she went and she did renovations and everything in order that it shouldn't fall. What's halacha? Right? So take we don't have an answer. We don't know. Is it good enough? Because basically she stopped it from falling. It was supposed to fall. She went, she did renovations, now it's not gonna fall anymore. And now it could be for another 20 years like that. So what's halacha? Is it that really we stopped her, or we say, listen, it was tough luck, it was supposed to fall? Or do we say no, we don't have an answer? So Amra, we said in the Mishnah back there, we said in the Mishnah, if she doesn't want to leave her father's house. So says the Gemara, he says like this, he says, right, why don't we come and tell her you're going to get mizunot, just like you're eating over there? What is the reason why what does it have to do with that she's in her father's house? Give her the mizunot when she's in her father's house. What do you care? And says the Gemara, there's more beracha when there's more people. If you have more people in one house, you could have 10 people in one house, it's going to cost you, let's say, $1,000. If you have 5 people in one house, 5 people in another house, it can cost you $1,200. Why? Because there's more beracha when there's more people. When there's more people, there's more beracha. And this is always like that. Yeshivot. Why? Because once you're splitting up, you need more food. Because beforehand, it could be that maybe I don't want this, and maybe you'll want it. Maybe you don't want this, and I'll want it. And it becomes like this. But each one, I have to put it. And that's why I said buffet. Why is buffet always much cheaper than putting on the tables? Because once you serve on the tables, you need one per person, or you need one you said one per table. If you're doing a buffet, you just put half the amount or a quarter of the amount, whatever it is in the amount, and you have it there. It's always much cheaper. So the same thing. This is a proof too, Ravuna. So ask the Gemara, so just give her according to what it is. Meaning, let's say she would have been a cost, more or less, $1,000 was for the entire family. So let's say for her it would have been $200. Just give her the 200. She's going to tell you she needs 250 or 300 because it's an individual. What do I care? According to the costs, it would have cost me 200. I give her that, and that's it. And says the Gemara, you're right. If she would have said that, you would have given her the 200. It would have been okay. So Amar Ravuna says, Lashon Chachamim beracha, Lashon Chachamim osher, Lashon Chachamim merapeh, which means from the Lashon of the Chachamim you could learn beracha, you could learn osher, and you could learn refuah. Beracha, health, right, to become cured, and osher, and riches. He says, what is this? Beracha, we just learned here. Beracha, right? Berucha, right? Birkat habayit beruba. We just learned it from the Chachamim. Osher, the Tanakh was learned in the Mishnah. Hamocher pero lechavero. If you're going to sell fruits to your friends, mashach velo madad. What happens if you took the perot, you went and you made an acquisition of meshicha, you draw them forth towards you. Velo madad, but you didn't do medidah. Medidah means you didn't measure them. Kana, you still acquired them. But if you did medidah, if you only measured them, velo mashach, but you didn't do meshicha, meshicha is you bring them closer to you. Lo kana, you didn't acquire them. Now, if you're a pikeach, what are you going to do? You're going to acquire the place, and then you're going to do like kinyan chatzer, meaning I'm going to acquire, let's say, this table. This is on the table, automatically I acquire it because it's in my field, it's in my property. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to acquire where this is, and then it's going to become mine. What is Lashon Chachamim marpeh? Says the Tanakh is learned in the Mishnah. Lo yilos adam chitin v'yaniach al gabe makato bepesach mifnei machmitzot. He says over here like this. We say that a person should not come and start chewing on chitin, on wheat, and then he's going to put it on top of his makkah. They used to use wheat. He used to use it as like for wounds, for a cure. So he says, don't do that. Why? Because it becomes chametz on Pesach. It's Pesach. You're going to put wheat in your mouth. You have with the saliva and everything, it becomes chametz. Then you put it, right? You chewed it. Then you come and you put it here. No, not on Yom Tov. We're not on Yom Tov. We're on even Chol Moed. It could be even on Chol Moed. No, that's what he's saying. You can't because you're making it. You're making it chametz.
It's not Pesach.
Yeah, no. What's the problem?
It's not a problem.
It's not a problem. Okay, but so it's Pesach. But it's Pesach, exactly. So he says on Pesach don't do it because it's going to be machmitzot. But from their words, you just learned refuah. Meaning, if I'm going to ask you now about haki, somebody has a wound. What does he do? He says you don't have a pharmacy. What do? You take wheat, chew it. You come, you put it on the makkah, and it's going to cure. You just learned from the chachamim. You learned marpeh. You just learned refuah. You just learned doctors, right? We took away the university. Yeah? We just learned in Amraita. The Shaptirato shel Rabbi. When Rabbi was going to pass away, Amar, he went and he said, "Lebanaya nitzarich, ani my children." Nichnesu banav etzlo, so his children came into him. Amar lahem, he said, "Hizeharu bichvod imechem." Be very careful in the kavod of your mothers. Right? We're going to see why. Why is he saying careful in your kavod of the mother? It's their mother. What? You're not going to be careful. What does that mean? Obviously, we're going to see. Number 2, ner yedaluk min komo. There should always be a candle in his, just like in his lifetime. Should always be in a candle by the table. Always. Shulchan Yaruch, there should always be the table set. Mitate, his bed should always be set. Yosef Chefani, the Shimon Efrati, these Yosef from Haifa and Shimon from Shevet Ephraim, Hem Shimshun B'chai, they serve me, they should serve him when he passed away as well. There's the whole thing here. That means basically, since they were serving him when he was alive, when he passes away, also they're going to serve him, which means they're going to do everything, to do with the kvura and everything. Okay? Hizeharu b'chodi mechem. Ask the Gemara, what does it mean? Imagine, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, the Benu HaKadosh, he's passing away. He comes and he says he wants his children. He's going to give them the last words before he passes away. He tells them, be careful with the kavod of your mother. Why do you have to say that? Says the Gemara, Doraitahi. He says, no, Eshet Av Havai. It wasn't their mother. It was their stepmother because he got married to another woman. So it's called Eshet Av. And he still tells them, he commanded them, you have to be careful. Why? But it's not Doraita anymore. The father passed away. They're not obligated anymore in the Kavod. But he tells them, be careful. Eshet Av, Nami Doraita. He says it's also Eshet Av is Doraita. The Tanya, as we learned in a Braita, like this. He says Eshet Av is also Doraita. The Tanya was learned in a Braita. This is the wife of your father. This is the wife of your mother. Vav Yetera is Lerabot Achicha Gadol. Meaning, how do you know that you're obligated, Mina Torah, to respect your older brother? Right? That's the Vav. Ve'etimecha. Now, by the way, there's a machloket. Does that mean only your eldest brother or any older brothers? Right? Which means that anybody which is above. But the extra Vav for sure is Achicha Gadol. You're obligated. So you see from here that even the stepfather or stepmother, you're obligated, Mina Torah. Answers the Gemara, and it's only if they're alive. But after their death, lo. Meaning, after the father dies, or after the mother dies, and now it's only the stepfather or the stepmother, now it's not anymore the same halakha anymore. So therefore, he went and he commanded them, this is what you have to do. The candle should always be lit, the table should always be set, the bed should always be there. My time, what's the reasoning, all these things? He always used to come to his house every Erev Shabbat. Meaning, even after he passed away, he used to come to his house every single Erev Shabbat. So therefore, he always wanted that, just like what we do in the Ribono Shalom. There's a Ribono Shalom that some people say on Friday nights, right? And it's also a song. I don't know, I don't remember if it's Avram Free, Chweki, whichever one it was. There's this, so there it says that you should always have the Mita Mutzat, the Ner Daluk Bimkomo, Shulchan Aruch Bimkomo, V'Mita Mutzat Bimkoma. So Ha'u Be'Shimcha, there was one Erev Shabbat, that the neighbor came and she started calling on the door. Amram Te, so the Shifchav Rebbe said, Shtiku, the Rebbe Yativ said, be quiet, the Rebbe is listening, right? Rebbe is coming and he's sitting here. So Kevin the Shema, once she heard that, and it became a fursam that he used to come to his house every single time, Shuv Lo Ata, he didn't come back again. In order not to be Lotzi Laz and other Rishonim. Why is it that only Rebbe is coming back to his house as if that he's still alive, and all the other tzaddikim, they don't come back? What's going on? So because of that, he never came back again, right? Because of that story. Okay, so Yosef Chefni, he thought to say, in this world. He says, no. Since they died before Rebbe. They were buried before Rebbe. So what's he saying? Amri, they said, it means in the next world. Meaning, since these were the two students that they served him in this world, he went and he said, they're going to serve me. Oh, they're going to serve him. They died before you. No. In the next world, they're also going to serve him. So why did he say that? In order that they shouldn't say that they had an Averah. Meaning people are going to say, listen, why did they die so young? Meaning they died before Rebbe. So if they died so young, maybe they had Averot, and therefore they died because of the Averot. Rebbe comes and he says, they're going to serve me in the next world because they're big tzaddikim. And they died not because of their Averot. Only because they didn't die until now, only because of the zechut of Rebbe. Okay, and then he comes and he continues with all these other things. So all of a sudden now, Rebbe comes and he asks Elmaleh, and he comes and to his children, he tells them the Chachmei Yisrael, and he says, "Chanid the Chachmei Yisrael." Nichnesu etzlo Chachmei Yisrael, so Chachmei Yisrael come inside Elmaleh, and he tells them, "Al tispedumi ba'ayarot." Do not do hespedim in the middle of the cities, right? Why? That means when they're coming and they're going on the path, don't do it in the middle of the cities. There's a whole question why, right? 103b. V'oshivu yeshiva la'achar 30 yom. After, right, he's going to pass away the 30 days, right? They're going to make a yeshiva. What does that mean? To be immediately, to start learning Torah. He didn't want Shimon beni Chacham. Shimon, his son, is going to be Chacham. Right? Gamliel, his son, is going to be the Nasi. Because remember, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, Rabbeinu HaKadosh, was giving over the Nesiut, he's giving over the Chokhmah. So the Nesiut, which is like the political rabbi, the ones of the Nasi, is one thing. The Chacham, which is the Rosh Yeshiva, is another thing. Chanina bar Chama yeshev barosh. Now the Rosh Yeshiva, so you have the Chacham, right? That here it says the Chacham. He comes and he says over here is like it's mashma that this is like the wise one. You have the Nasi, and then you have the Rosh Yeshiva. So the different like positions that he was giving out. So what does it mean? Al tispiduni ba'areyot? Why don't you come and give him the eulogies in the middle of the cities? Savun mineh. They thought it was mishum tircha because of tircha. But rather, but what? Since he sees everyone's came, they were coming in the big cities, and everybody was coming. It was more of the kavod Torah, which means that he wanted that if you're going to do it in small cities, so they said, okay, we were already Yotzei Chova. If we were Yotzei Chova, we don't have to do it again. So what are you going to do? No, in the little cities, no avelut whatsoever, no eulogies. When are you doing the eulogies? Eulogies are going to be done in big cities when everybody has to come in. Because if not, if he's going to speak in every small place, when he's going to speak in the big place, nobody's going to even bother. What does it mean here? You're going to learn Torah after 30 days and you're not going to be doing any more the esped? So he comes and he says, it's not even worse than Moshe Rabbeinu. They were crying for him for 30 days. After 30 days, that's it. So that means for 30 days they were doing espedim during the daytimes and night times. After that, they used to do esped during the daytimes and they used to learn at night times. Until they finished 1 year. For 1 full year they finished. But after 30 days, they had to start learning Torah again. The day that Rabbi passed away, there was a bat call that came in, a heavenly voice came out, the Rabbi, anybody that's going to be during the time in the present when Rabbi passes away, he's going to have a lamaba. There was a koves, a launderer. A launderer, a person that does the laundry, right? Launderer, that's a word, right? Koves echad. Right, like the laundry, whether it's going to be laundry mats or all these different things, the cleaners. Every single day he used to come in front of Rabbi. That day he didn't come. Once he heard that whoever is going to be in front of Rabbi when he passed away is going to get Olam Haba. And that day he didn't come. Every day he used to come in front of Rabbi. That day he didn't come. What happened? He went up to the roof. He committed suicide. He jumped off the roof. He thought to himself, every single day he comes in front of the Rabbi. This day he didn't come, and this day was when he passed away. He lost Olam Haba. The Bat Kol came out and said he's also going to get Olam Haba. Don't worry about it. Shimon Beni Chacham. What does it mean? Shimon Beni, my son is a Chacham. My Kama, what does it mean? Hachim, what does it mean say? Even though Shimon Beni is a Chacham, still Gamliel Beni is the Nasi. That means even though the Shimon, his son, is going to be the Chacham, the Gamliel is the one that's going to be the Nasi. The Amar Levi says, do you have to say that? Why did he have to say that Gamliel's son is going to be the Nasi? He's the Bechor, right? He should be the Nasi. Amar Rabbi Shimon bar Rabbi, says Rabbi Shimon bar Rabbi, you need the tzivui of Rabbi, and also for you and your tzliatecha. That's because he was like lame, so he needed his thing. He says, why did he need that? My kashale, what was the question? He says, it's a pasuk. The pasuk says, he gave the malchut, the kingdom, to Yoram because he was Bechor. So you see from here that the Bechor always gets the Yerusha. He gets the property. He gets the lineage of the father. So says the Gemara, he says, no. He was fitting like his father. Meaning if the son is fitting like the father, so then the son takes the place of the father because he's the Bechor. But Rav Gamliel was not Memaleh Makom Avotavaya. He wasn't Memaleh Makom. So therefore, if it wasn't for the fact that Rabbi said that Gamliel should take it, he shouldn't have taken it. It should have been the other son, meaning the younger son. But the fact that he said Gamliel is going to be the Nasi, Gamliel was going to be the Nasi. So it's asked the Gemara, so why did Rabbi do that? But Rabbi Maitam Avadachi, why did he do that? So he says, he wasn't Memaleh Makom Avotav in Chokhmah and wisdom, but he was Memaleh Makom Avotav Birat Chet, in fear of God. In fear of sin, he was so fearful of sin, he had Yirat Shamayim. That was already enough. He could be, he's not as smart, doesn't matter. The Chokhmah is not the most important. The most important is the Yirat Shamayim. As long as he has Yirat Shamayim, that's it. Chanina bar Chama Yeshev Rosh. Chanina bar Chama is going to be the Rosh Yeshiva. Lo Kibel Rav Chanina didn't accept it. Why? Rabbi Yafes was older than him 2.5 years. So because he was 2.5 years older than him, because of his kavod, he didn't accept it. So Yativ Rabbi Yafes Bereisha. So Rabbi Yafes was the Rosh Yeshiva. Yativ Rav Chanina Barai. Rav Chanina used to sit outside. V'ata Levi v'yata Gabes. So Levi came to him. Nachlam Shel Rabbi Yafes. Then Rabbi Yafes passed away. Yativ Rav Chanina Bereisha. Rabbi Chanina sat inside. So nobody could sit outside with him. Right? Why? That was fitting to learn with him. So therefore, there's a whole question: why didn't he want to go inside? So he says over here, Ve'kata leBavel. So he went to Bavel. And that's what he said to Rav. Gavar Rabba Ikar Nadav Matla. There was a great person that came to Nadav and he's Solea. The Darish Klila Shari. So he was a Doresh, right? That is permitted to get married to go out on Shabbat when he has this Kalila. Okay, so Amani said, Shema Mina, we learn from here, Nachnav Shed Rabbi Yafes. Rabbi Yafes actually passed away, and that's why Levi had to come from itself to Bavel. Okay, V'yativ Rabbi Chanina Bereisha, Rabbi Chanina became the Shiva. And there was nobody for Levi to actually learn with him, and therefore he came to Bavel. So why didn't he just say, Rabbi Chanina just say, the Nachnav Shed Rabbi Yafes, and therefore he came. So basically the question is, why don't we just say that Rabbi Chanina was the one that was Niftar, and Rabbi Yafes continued, and therefore Levi didn't have anybody? So we could say that Levi would listen to Rabbi Yafes, but not to Rabbi Chanina. If you could answer, once Rabbi says Chanina it had to become Rosh Yeshiva. It doesn't matter when, but he had to become Rosh Yeshiva. As it says by Tzadikim, that Tigzar Omer v'yakum lach. What does that mean? Tzadik gozer v'akadosh baruch hu mekayem. A tzaddik makes a decree, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to be mekayem by this decree. Okay? Hava Rabbi Chia. But Rabbi Chia was also there. Nachlav Sher. Rabbi Chia passed away. So asked the Gemara, Rabbi Chia, I need to give Rosh Rabbi. What are you talking about? Rabbi Chia saw the kever of Rabbi, and he was crying. So he saw when Rabbi passed away. Says the Gemara, the opposite. The Rabbi saw the kever of Rabbi Chia, and he was crying. So asked the Gemara, Rabbi Chia says, that when Rabbi passed away, there was no more Kiddusha anymore. Because Rebbeinu Kadosh was called Kadosh. He was so holy. So says the Gemara, opposite. That it was the opposite. When Rabbi Chia, that's what Rabbi said on Rabbi Chia. Asked the Gemara, Tanya, we learned on right, when Rabbi became sick, Rabbi Chia came to him, he found that he was crying. Amalo, he says, Rabbi, why are you crying? Tanya, we learned, if somebody dies when they're laughing, it's siman yafelo. Listen to these words. If somebody dies when they're laughing, it's a good siman. If he's dying when he's crying, it's a bad siman. Panav lemala, if his face is upwards, it's a good siman. Panav lemata, if his face is downwards, it's a bad siman. Panav klape ha'am, if he's looking at people, it's a good siman. Klapav lakotel, if he's looking towards the wall, it's a bad siman. Panav yirukim, if he's white, if his face is all white, so it's a bad siman. Panav tzuvim, but if it's red and yellowish, it's a good siman. If he dies on Erev Shabbat, it's a good siman. Motzei Shabbat, it's a bad siman. If he dies on Erev Yom Kippur, it's a siman ralo. If he dies on Motzei Kippur, it's a good siman. Yeah? Met, 1 second. Met
before Kippur is what?
Before Kippur is a bad siman. Siman ralo. If it's on Motzei Kippur, it's a good siman. Why? Because that means he didn't have the zechut of having Kippur to purify his sins. So Motzei Kippur, he was already whitened, and now he died. He says, if he dies from a sickness of the insides of the, like what stomach problems, it's a good siman. The majority of the tzaddikim, they die with this sickness of chole me'ayim, in order that Tosfot actually says, if I remember correctly, it was, no, it's not Tosfot, but it was somebody that says it, that he says over here, yeah, because it's in order to get rid of their sins, right? That's Rashi and Shabbat. So he says over here, siman, why? Amar lo, ana Torah mitzvot kabechin. He says, you know why I'm crying? Because of the Torah and the mitzvot that I wasn't able to learn properly. That's why. That means he's not crying because it was a bad siman. He was crying because he wanted to do more Torah mitzvot. If you could answer April, again, you flip it around. That really Rabbi Chia was the one that was crying and Rabbi was the one that came to visit him. If you could answer the don't turn it around. Rabbi Chia was a super mitzvotava. Rabbi Savar lo pagres. He says Rabbi Chia was always doing mitzvot, so he didn't want to make him tell him mitzvot, so therefore he didn't actually bother him. And that's why when there was a argument between Rechanin and Rechia, Amal Rabbi Chinan and Rechia, Rechanin said to Rechia, what, you're arguing with me? If it wasn't for me, the entire Torah, if the entire Torah would have been forgotten, I would be mipalpel and bring back the entire Torah. Meaning, even if the Torah was forgotten, I would bring everything back. Rechia says, I made the entire Torah was not forgotten by Israel. Was I went and I planted Kishtan, flax, Magalan Nishve, and then I went and I brought it, I made it grow, and then I made it into traps. And then I went and I trapped the deers. And I gave the meat for the Yitomim to eat. And then I went and I made Megilot from cloth. And I used to go to places where there was no teachers. I used to write 5 Torah for 5 different boys. Right? And then I used to teach to 6 different boys. And then afterwards, I went to every single one of the boys and I told them, I taught you Bereshit. I taught you Shemot. you Vayikra, you Bamidbar, you Devarim, you each one have it, teach it to each other. So he taught him Bereshit, he taught him Bereshit, he taught him Bereshit, he taught him, and they taught each other. The same thing with the Mishnayot. And by doing that, he brought back the entire Torah to all of Am Yisrael. And that's what Rabbi said. Kama Gedolim Masechia. Look at the actions of Chia, right? Of Rabbi Chia. Amale Rishimon Rabbi says Rishimon Rabbi, Afilu Mincha even greater than you. Amale in yes. Amale Rishimon Rabbi Yosef. Afilu Me'aba even than Rabbi Yosef. Amale Chas Shalom. No, not more than Rabbi Yosef. Right, not that much. So there's a whole question exactly why not much. He says that it was because of his zanava. He went and he said such a thing, but there's a whole question. Amala, and he said afterwards, Rabbi comes and he says, Livni katan nitzich. I need my small son, right, my little boy. Livni katan nitzich. He gave him all sidrei chukma. Amal so imagine he gave him all maaseh bereshit, maaseh merkava. He gave him like all the kabbalah and everything. Then he went and he called Livni gadol. I need the oldest boy. So he taught him how to become a nasi. When you are the nasi, you have to sit in the high places. And you have to put fear in the people. People don't understand. Rabbi Ovadia was very strong in this. Why? Rabbi Ovadia Yosef was very strong in this. Why? Because he says that if you're nasi, if you're the rabbi, right, and you're not going to put fear in the people, you're not going to instill fear in people, what happens? They trample. Nobody does it. So therefore you have to push, right, in order to make sure that there's going to be a lot of fear. So ask the Gemara, any is it so? You have to respect the Yirei Hashem, the fear of the people that fear God. Right? When he used to see he used to stand up from his seat, he used to hug him and kiss him, and he said, Rabbi, so this is the king coming and saying, look, my rabbi, my master. Says the Gemara, a question. If it's privately, that's how you're supposed to act. And even though you're the king, you're going to come, hug him, kiss him, everything. But if it's Parhesia in front of everybody, no. You have to act that you're the king, you're the greatest one. Tanya, we learned in the right time. That means even though he was sick, Rabbi was sick in Sipori, he was going to be buried in Bet Sharim. Ask the Gemara, Tanya, we learned you have to go after Bet Sharim. So Rabbi Bet Sharim, really bad man, Rabbi was in Bet Sharim. Once he was sick, they took him to Tzipori. Why? The Midalia, because it was high up in the mountains. And they took him to the mountains. There was a good air. So because of the fresh air, they wanted purposely that he was going to be in a good so that way he could be cured. And then afterwards, when he passed away there, that's when they took him back to Bet Sharim.